the world of chiropractic, where we take one epic journey around the world as we explore the 7 regions of the World Federation of Chiropractic. My name is Dr. Rebecca Wilkes, and I invite you to travel with me as we go on this exciting adventure around the globe. Well, today we are joined by Dr. Weber, who's a chiropractor and neuroscientist with an appointment in the Division of Pain Medicine at Stanford University School of Medicine. Welcome to the world of chiropractic.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm really glad to be here.
Well, you're a neuroscientist, which is fundamentally different than neurology. Can you explain this to our viewers?
Yeah, so neurology is a branch of medicine concerned with diagnosis and treatment of diseases that affect the nervous system, including the peripheral nervous system and central nervous system. Neuroscience is a science or a study of the nervous system and trying to understand the mechanisms and how they work using a variety of different techniques. So there's a lot of overlap between neurology and neuroscience, and we use a lot of the same tools and same language, and kind of have the same goals in the end, and that's to help patients.
Okay, so if you were to kind of use that comparison, how does neuroscience apply to the field of chiropractic?
Yeah, so neuroscience for me is a large umbrella term that includes a lot of different aspects and then a lot of things that we do with our patients. So there's motor processing, sensory processing, pain processing. And these are things that we look for in our patients to better understand what their condition is, how it's influencing the nervous system, whether that's looking at sensory testing, motor testing, or reflexes, and trying to diagnose and understand their condition and then apply the right treatment. And there's also this other, our treatments, whether that's manual therapy or exercise, they are affecting the nervous system and affecting how those individuals are experiencing pain or whatever their condition is. And so there's this interplay of neuroscience, using it to diagnose, and then also the effect of our treatments on the nervous system.
And I'm sure that is changing daily with research.
Yeah, there's new stuff every day. Research, it tends to move a little bit slower, with the translation may take 10 years from what's coming out today before it comes into clinical practice. But it's definitely influences clinical practice.
And you had mentioned that your research interests were preclinical, like you just referenced, and your research intersects medical imaging and machine learning, and it uses advanced brain, spinal cord, and musculoskeletal MRI to develop quantitative measures of sensory motor function and pain. Where do you think that this particular focus of research will lead us in about 10 to 20 years clinically?
Okay. Yeah, so just to break that down, so I work a lot with medical imaging. It's sort of the neuroscience tool of my choice and my training. If you think about a conventional MRI, you may order that to look at someone's low back to see if they have evidence of disc herniation, nerve impingement, and you'll have a radiologist read that image and give you their impression on what could be causing their condition. The fact is that there's a lot more information in that image that can be extracted. But if we want to do that, it can be pretty time consuming. So we're trying to use some new techniques to make it more efficient to get measures. So what measures there might be? We learn a lot of these in our chiropractic training. Maybe you're looking at disc height or intervertebral height. And so those are measures that you can get from the MRI. I'm also interested in getting measures of muscular function and muscle size, muscle health, muscle composition, nervous system function, structural aspects of the nervous system, and motor function. And so these are additional measures that we can get out of MRI. Some of them can be from the conventional sort of MRI series you get during for a patient, they may order for a patient. And others take more advanced techniques that I am working to kind of move into the clinical domain. So I guess the machine learning aspect of it is using statistics to try to identify those features in the image that you are interested in. So one example would be with your phone and how they have automatic face detection. So we're working on automatic muscle detection in these images so that we can quantify their size and their composition. And then the idea of what sensory motor biomarker or markers. So a marker is trying to make it more quantitative. So we can, a marker is something that tracks a physiological process or a disease process that you can use to better inform patient care. So what we want to do is get these measures, and then ideally we want to see that these measures relate to their sensory status or to their motor function and or their pain level that they're experiencing. And so this is kind of the direction that we're going. We just had a paper come out last week in Scientific Reports that was working on extracting muscle measures from the cervical spine. And so we developed a computer vision technique that can go in and identify 7 pairs of muscles. So this is the multifidus semispinalis cervicis, the semispinalis capitis, longus coli, longus capitis, sternocleidomastoid, trapezius, and levator scapula, and then splenius muscles. And we can go into the image, and within a few seconds, we can identify those muscles, and then we can extract their volume measures, and then also track how much fat is in these muscles. And what's been found is that people with chronic musculoskeletal conditions, they tend to have higher infiltration of fat within the muscles associated with that condition. And so we can very quickly now go in and extract those measures and look at them. And we identified that within the deep cervical muscles, we saw that there was a correlation between fat infiltration and age. And then also the women tended to have fattier muscles than men did. So kind of getting at the basic characteristics of what do these measures mean, and trying now to move that into more clinical relevance to it and trying to understand it. And maybe they can tell us something about who's more susceptible to having chronic pain. And maybe we can try to reverse some of these fatty infiltration changes with exercise and the other treatments that we do.
Do you see a feature where you automatically input your clinical observations to a computer system? The system takes images and interprets the findings from the images and then compares it with the existing research to then give you a treatment plan?
Yeah, I think that could be, could be 20 years down the road. I think what you could see maybe in the next 10 years is the imaging being more quantitative. And so we can develop a normative database, and you'll go get your standard clinical MRI done. And then all these measures can start to be extracted from the images, and then they can be given to a radiologist who can use them to interpret the images better. And not just a radiologist, but the clinician too. So you taking these measures with how the patient presents, and then combining them to try to make a treatment plan that's really tailored to that specific individual.
Right. So I guess at least for the time being, we are not going fully automated with this.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's going to take, research is really slow, and from these sort of feasibility, proof of concept projects, there's validation of it. We have issues of how do we get it to work across different sites for different people of different ethnicities, of body habitus, children versus adults, and then also getting this approved by governing and regulatory bodies. It's quite a process. So it's long-term goals and a vision. But I do think these sort of techniques will change will change practice and how we understand musculoskeletal conditions and pain.
And do you believe that this would necessitate increased communication between the radiologist, the interpreting radiologist, and the, say, chiropractor or the practitioner ordering the images?
Yeah, I could see that definitely. And it may even come to where there's more specialization, either chiropractors specializing in using this information for those complicated cases, and or radiologists kind of having to understand the clinical implications and maybe suggesting sort of treatment avenues for patients.
This almost seems like a field that has unlimited possibility. Do you see there being a need for individuals to conduct research in this particular niche?
Yeah, I think it's, it's a fastly moving field, and there's a ton of stuff to do. And, the goal is to just better identify the patient and what's going on uniquely to them that's responsible or contributes to their presentation of their condition, of their pain experience. And developing these unique patient-centered treatment plans. So in order for us to get there, it's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's going to take a lot of interaction between researchers and clinicians, for sure.
Right. Well, let's jump back to neuroscience. Was there anything that you didn't expect as part of your neuroscience training before you jumped into it?
Yeah, I guess I would say that there's two things. The first one would be kind of the complexity, I guess you could say it is. That's what I'm getting at. I came into my neuroscience training with already having my clinical training and having a good understanding of neuroanatomy, the musculoskeletal anatomy, understanding peripheral nerves and aspects of neurology and how the brain functions and spinal cord functions. And I thought I'd get into the neuroscience program and it would just be, there's so much out there that we completely perfectly understand, and how am I going to take it all in? And it really is, you only go a little level deeper than I think that's what's taught as far as in your clinical education. And then you just start to get into uncertainties. And we don't know everything. There's so much that we can learn. And if you just go a little level deeper, that's kind of where we're at as far as knowledge goes. So just the complexity of the systems and maybe some of the limitations in our ability to measure the nervous system and its structure and function, especially in humans. We're limited in what you can do. And so it makes it a fun, complex, and really interesting area of research. And then I think that the second thing that I didn't expect was how much coding I would be doing. And so I started my neuroscience training without any experience with computer coding and understanding really how a computer works, besides maybe downloading files and opening them and working in Word and Excel. But I spend a good portion of my day coding analyses and figuring out ways to work with large data sets that if you were to just move files around to do analyses and open up individual files, it would become too burdensome to really be productive at it. So I'm working now with some data sets that have in the thousands of participants. And so you need to find ways to automate those analyses and automate sort of the quality checks and making sure that everything is running smoothly. So that is an area I did not expect that I would be learning and focusing so much time in. Fortunately, I really enjoy it. It's really entertaining, and it's like a puzzle every day where I have to figure out how to do something new.
I guess it's part of your formal training that they taught you, or they expect you to kind of teach yourself to have some sort of baseline knowledge?
Yeah, so they definitely didn't teach me. So it was all hands-on knowledge and really just starting from the basics and then building on that. And my PhD was 5 to 6 years, I forget actually. But over those course of those years, you slowly build up that knowledge to where you can, I feel fairly proficient that I'm able to figure out most things. But there's always someone that I can bounce ideas off of to get help if I run into some obstacles.
Right. Yeah. We're all here for each other and we all have different expertise. So
yeah. And that's maybe that's another thing, is just how, you can't know everything. And so you really do need to work on collaboration. And a lot of it is, I've got my own expertise, which I feel is coming more and more specialized, but I need somebody, who's going to provide information. If I want to do a new MRI sequence on someone, I need to find an MR physicist and work closely with him or her, and to be able to maybe get this idea to work and off the ground. So it is a lot of working together and building on everyone else's expertise and experiences.
And I imagine at Stanford, you have quite a bit of access to a variety of individuals with expertise.
Yeah, and I definitely feel very fortunate to be where I am. I have pretty much all the resources that I need, that I can really imagine. And it's also been a extremely collaborative environment where I don't know if I've been turned down yet for an idea. There's some things maybe that, maybe they just haven't told me that up to my face, but everyone's been open to different projects and different ideas. They may offer suggestions on how to reshape an idea or a project, or a better way to do it, but it's been a very collaborative environment. And yeah, I definitely feel blessed to have the resources here.
We're not even a few minutes into this interview, and you've already gone through every single portion of the hashtag campaign that the WFC has called Be Epic, which is evidence-based, people-centered, interprofessional, and collaborative. You have just bam, bam, bam touched on all of those. So it sounds like you pretty much embrace Be Epic as a lifestyle.
Yeah, I definitely, I do. And the evidence-based part is, try to use science as best as possible to guide what you're doing. At least do that for the initial sort of encounter and steps on treating a patient. Then rely on your experiences and bring that in as well. And then people-centered. It's all about the patient. It's about building relationships, and it's about doing what is best for them, and what they are most interested in, what they value with their care and their outcomes. And then definitely interprofessional. I work with pretty much most sort of healthcare practitioners and scientists. So I collaborate a lot with physical therapists, pain physicians, anesthesiologists, psychologists, and then engineers and physicists. And I'm leaving off a large list of other professions. So it is definitely interprofessional. And the collaborative aspect of it is really what makes my research so much fun, and is that we get together, we've got a problem, and we want to figure out the answer to it. And so working collaboratively is one of the best parts. And it also, it's great to work with people who are fun to work with and have that kind of energy to move projects forward, and do it with a lot of fun and a smile.
And a smile. Got to add it with that. Well, jumping back to the chiropractic portion of this, you do have active DC licenses. Do you actually practice chiropractic?
Yeah, so my goal when I started my research training was to be able to keep my foot in the clinical door as I also moved, trained as a scientist, and becoming a clinician scientist, and be able to maybe devote 50% of my time to clinical work and 50% of my time to the research and science. I haven't been able to do that, and so I have really kind of bet everything on my scientific career and research career, and it's for me, it's been hard to try to balance it. And the research skill set is such a different skill set than the clinical skill set, at least as far as the technical aspects of it, with running an experiment, designing an experiment. There's also then the funding aspects and learning how to write grants that are competitive to get funded. So there's a lot there. I do hope, though, that I can get back into the clinical practice, and that may happen in the near future. At least, a limited time, but at least have my foot in the door. But right now, I'm purely doing research.
Okay, it's a hope, at least, right?
It is a hope. It is a hope. Yeah.
So, what made you first of all choose chiropractic and then move from chiropractic into neuroscience?
Yeah. So I grew up with my grandparents and my parents using chiropractic care on a regular basis for their musculoskeletal complaints. My dad has chronic back pain, and he manages it very well with chiropractic care. And so it was just a normal part of my life. And so I would go with my family and when they went to go see the chiropractor. And it seemed like definitely they're respected in the community, providing a great service. And my family chiropractor, she had a clinic in her house or off of her house. And she worked there and then was right there back at home. And it seemed like such a nice work-life balance. So I really enjoyed that. I knew I wanted to go into something related to science and healthcare. And chiropractic to me stood out as an alternative path to be a little bit different. And that was also exciting. And then my sister, she is a Palmer College graduate out of Iowa. And so she's 7 years older than me. And so I saw her, start chiropractic college and got really interested in what she was learning. And that was definitely a motivation for me continuing along that path as well. And then for neuroscience, I knew that I wanted to go into research shortly into the chiropractic program. I've had an interest in science, and then there's so much that we don't understand about how the body works and how, why someone has low back pain or has neck pain, and exactly, how did it develop and what are the best treatments for them. And so those questions just were up in my head constantly. And I knew I wanted to go into research to try to answer those. When I was looking for at PhD programs and what area of science I wanted to go into, I think I could have been happy with anything. And I was looking pretty broadly. My interest in neuroscience came from working with Dr. Don Dishman, who was a professor at Palmer, Florida, which I attended. And he was doing some work looking at neurophysiological changes following lumbar spinal manipulation. And I got involved with him on some projects, helped with some data collection. That was like my first, sort of taste of neuroscience. And then during my final trimester, during a preceptorship, I went to Chicago and was able to work part-time at the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago under the direction of Dr. Jim Stanier. Jim is a Sherman College grad who graduated in the early 80s, practiced for many years in New Zealand, then helped establish, I think, the New Zealand Chiropractic College, and then eventually decided, after practicing for, I think, almost 20 years, to go get a PhD, which led him into neuroscience and then back to the Rehab Institute of Chicago, where I found him. And he brought me in to work in his lab, which was a stroke rehabilitation lab that used different brain stimulation techniques to try to make physical therapy more effective. And yeah, I started working with Jim every day in neuroscience and neurophysiology, and it sort of solidified my choice of neuroscience, and just really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the people we were working with, and working with stroke patients was interesting to try to see the challenge of mobility after a stroke, and then try to figure out ways to help them was tremendously rewarding.
I'd imagine, being a chiropractor, you'd already kind of have a keen interest in something, any word with the word neuro in it, right?
Yeah, definitely. The conditions we see is all about, the motor system, the sensory system, how the sensory systems interact with motor control, and then also throwing pain on all of this and how it influences the coordination of the nervous system is what we do and what we're trying to change for our patients.
Right. Well, we've gone through neuroscience, we've gone through chiropractic, we have not gone to you. So tell us something unique about you.
Yeah. My main hobby is probably research, which is really boring and not unique. But I really enjoy cooking and entertaining people. And so I try to cook every night at the home, and we have a 1-year-old daughter. And so this is all new. It's kind of neat in COVID. So much has changed. And then we have a daughter, and she's now eating, and it's really enjoyable just to see her enjoy to eat and must be together as a family. I guess that would be my unique thing. She seems to be easy to please, so that's good.
Well, good. Well, I imagine if it's good food, then she would be pleased easily. So if one were to consider to take the path of neuroscience, do you have any advice on where they should start, and also maybe what options that they might have available once their education is complete?
Yeah, and this is an area that I really love talking about. So if there is any viewers, you can reach out to me via email. You can easily find me with a Google search. And you can talk to me as one, and I'll give you my honest sort of experiences and advice. The thing would be, if, I guess, trying to get a mentor and trying to get experience is probably the best first step. Working on a project, even if your role in it is just recruitment of subjects in the beginning, and then slowly moving up to where you're doing different techniques on patients and collecting different types of data, and getting your hands wet, just kind of at the ground level. That's really the most important thing to start with. Then comes, if you've done that and you're excited to do those kind of things and collect data and look at it, and you want to go on to look into a PhD program, I think that would be a next logical step. You could also do a master's program, but if you really want to, I think, be competitive as far as doing research at a large institution or trying to get NIH funding, I think a PhD is a good option. And there's lots of different sort of things you can look at. How large of a program do you want to go into? Is there a certain area of neuroscience that you're most interested in? Is it motor control or sensory systems? I work with MRI and in humans. So, our ability to look at the nervous system is a much larger kind of view. We're looking at like millimeter resolution in the brain. But there's a lot of people who do work in animals, and then they're able to look at, micron resolution and look at cellular information and genetic sort of characteristics of neuroscience. And so those are also available. So my first thing, would be get experience. Then find a mentor who will give you good advice, and then look out for PhD programs that are of interest to you. There's a lot of funding opportunities to help chiropractors receive this PhD and research training. One is that most programs are you don't pay to go get the training; they pay you to get the training because you're doing work for them, and it's not that they'll just cover tuition, but they'll give you a stipend to live off of, and usually you get health and dental insurance. The other aspect is, so within the US, the National Institutes of Health has a loan repayment program. So you can actually get help paying off your chiropractic student loans to go and get research training and do research. So there's definitely a lot of avenues available. And I'm more than happy to sit down and discuss this with anyone who's interested. I feel like weekly, I usually talk to somebody and try to give them a little bit of mentoring in how best to navigate getting research training.
Okay, so I'll put your email address in the show notes.
Okay.
Even though they can Google you, either or. Well, Dr. Rubber, I want to thank you so much for telling us a little bit more about neuroscience in combination with chiropractics, a little bit more of insight into your life. And thank you so much for joining us on the World of Chiropractic.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thanks again for the opportunity.